As we continue along with HTML basics here, we're going to take a look at some more complicated tags. Still not getting too in-depth yet, but there's lots of little details that we need to sort of just learn that they exist, learn where we could find more information later on when we're taking advantage of these in other ways. So, I've created a new blank file here. I just did this with the Control-N or Command-N, and at this point I want to just get a basic HTML kind of layout. I could go in and type the doc tag, HTML, head, body, title, all that stuff. But you will find that there are actually some shortcuts in here if it has recognized what file type you're in. I created this with Command-N or Control-N, so it's a brand new file. It actually doesn't know what language it's in yet. There's two ways I can solve that. I could go ahead and save it and give it a name, and then it would figure it out from the name. But I can also come down here to the bottom right corner and click on plain text. Here it shows all the different languages that it can possibly recognize out of the box. And you can even add more to this by installing packages, something we've actually already done. So here, what we want to do is get it to recognize that it's HTML, just basic HTML. There's lots of different versions of HTML, but we just want basic. Once I do that, as I start to type, it's going to show me all sorts of different possibilities here. It has an HTML tag, basic HTML template, minimal HTML template, HTML template using octagons. I don't even know what that is. So let's try basic HTML template and see what we get here. We get a lot. This is actually one that you might want to use from time to time. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to do Command A and delete and go back here again. Let's do minimal HTML template. And this is a little bit better. It's throwing a lot of things in here. Let's talk about exactly what it's throwing in. I mentioned before that there are meta tags. These go inside the head, and these are ways to give it a little more information and control special things that are outside the normal scope of HTML. In this case, it tells you the encoding, in this case UTF-8. We already talked about that a little bit before. It also gives you some little tags in here that are useful for setting scaling as well as width when you're on something other than a desktop. Something here that helps deal with Internet Explorer, and then it links in a couple of style sheets. This is actually something called Bootstrap, and this little bit that we brought in here is part of the Bootstrap 3 add-ons that I had you add as a package. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that part as well as this little script right here that helps it work better with Internet Explorer. So that all we have left in the head are those meta tags, which are actually kind of useful, and our title. Similarly, I want to come down to the body. You'll notice it added in a couple of extra things, again for Bootstrap. Bootstrap needs jQuery as well, so it added in a couple things for those. I'm going to go ahead and take those out. So that could be one way to just get a real quick boilerplate kind of HTML page set up. Let's go ahead and call this example 2, get myself a title in here. Now, what we just did there is an example of something called a snippet. A snippet is a modern sort of text editing idea so that when you want to create something really quickly, which is something you have to create over and over again, you can have it at your disposal to quickly drop in. And in Atom, you actually have control over this. I believe this is normally under the File menu if you're on Windows, but when you're inside of Mac, it's under the Atom menu, Snippets. And in here are the global snippets that you'd like to be able to put anywhere. Now, I actually have some snippets that I put in here for other things. They're kind of crazy long snippets here, and things that you wouldn't necessarily want to put inside your own, so don't do that. What you're looking at in here, by the way, is something called CoffeeScript. And in fact, what you have is a CSON file, which is CoffeeScript object notation. This is a big, messy world of all sorts of different things. Let's go ahead. I would at least like to put in here a snippet that allows us to create this kind of boilerplate stuff. And I'm going to even take out these couple things which aren't necessarily wanting to be there in every single one. Let's have it look just like this, where we have the doc type, HTML, head with the meta that describes the encoding, which is always a good thing, the title, and then the body. I'm going to copy this little chunk here, and I want to come over to my snippets.cson, which I opened by Atom Snippets. And in here, I want to add some snippets that are just right under text.html.basic. Now, if you don't have that, go ahead and add it, text.html.basic. here you could call this boilerplate HTML. And that's going to be the name of it. And then we go down here. Make sure you keep these tabs just right because CoffeeScript is sensitive to tabs. It uses that for more information. Right here then, let's call this prefix. You always need a prefix, and this is what you're going to type in order to bring it in. And we'll just say we type HTML BP for boilerplate. Then here's what it's going to put in. We're going to say body. And then right here we're going to do something a little bit odd. We're going to do 3 quotes in a row. And this allows us to specify a whole big chunk of stuff that we want it to include. And when we're done with it, we just need those 3 quotes in a row again. So I'm going to come back up to the top here and put those in. So we had body right here. I put those 3 quotes in a row in there again to close it off. Now, if you have more things in here, make sure you don't mess up those other things as you put it in there. You probably won't. I only have these in here because I added them. So in the end, if you want this to work, it's all just optional, just showing you a little trick here, make certain that you have it in just like this. You can pause the video here and compare it with yours and make sure it's all working. Then, save your snippets. Now, over here, anytime I'd like to put in this little bit of code, I can just start typing HTML. And there it is right there, boilerplate HTML. I hit enter. It puts in that little snippet for me. This is something I highly encourage you to take advantage of. You can download all sorts of packages that have predefined snippets in them from the Atom website, but it really works best when you create your own snippets. Things that you do frequently that you don't want to keep typing over and over. Make a snippet for it. We'll have some of those once we get into the world of Bootstrap, which we will be doing eventually. So keeping those Bootstrap ones in there is handy, but right now they're a little more than we want. So we make this simple little one to get a page started. Let's go ahead and make the basic structure of our page. We want a header. We want a main section. Nothing in particular. It's not an article or anything like that. And we want a footer. These are things you could also keep in your snippet, by the way. Let's put in COPY 2017 set barrier. And in our header, let's give it some nice big header type stuff. And we'll call this more basic tags. Oops. Keep that up there. And I want to make the title be that as well. The other thing I like to do, if you remember from the last video, I like to put these horizontal rules, the big horizontal lines between my sections so I can see them really easily. Here inside my section, well, at this point, you might notice something. I don't have an H2 of any kind inside my section, and normally the linter would warn me about that, but it's not. Why is that? It's because I haven't saved the file yet. It cannot lint the file until you save it. So let's go ahead and save this. I'm going to save it in the same folder that we were in before. Call this example2.html. And now it lints it and it notices that we're missing that H2. So let's go ahead and put that in there. Playing with new tags. Now you should have read about all of these. This is really just a way that we can go through and play with them together. So if you've already got the basics of your list tags, your linking tags, and your form tags, then you really don't have to keep following along with me here. But let's go ahead and play with these here just so you see some more. I might present them in a little different way than the book does. So what we want to learn about now is ways of creating lists of items. P is meant for paragraphs, pre is meant for pre-formatted. There's lots of other types of things you might have. You might have figures, tables, images, or you might have lists. Lists are one of the critical sort of elements of any document. There are two essential kinds of lists. First, there's an unordered list, or UL. Now we go on into the middle of this, and a UL is meant to have items inside it. And these are always indicated as list items, or LI. Those need to always come between the open and close UL, or one of the other list items that we'll talk about eventually, or list types. I like to put the LI open and close on the same line here, so I'm going to do that. And let's go ahead and talk about this a little bit. Let's put something in here. Monday. And then we'll continue. I'm going to do a little copy paste in order to make several list items. Tuesday, Wednesday, and let's do a big copy here. If you double click a word, it'll highlight the whole word for you, so that makes it easy to replace. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Pretty standard list, right? Let's save that. And now let's look at this. You already know how to open these in the browser pretty simply. I want to show you one other shortcut for that. We installed a package called Open in Browser right here. And so you can go over Packages, Open in Browser, and click this, and it will automatically open it in your default browser. Make sure you set your default browser in your operating system before you do that, or it might open it in Internet Explorer or something like that. We want it to open in either Chrome or Safari. If I click this, it will do just that. And here it is, more basic tags. It noticed it and opened example 2 right in the browser, just the same as if we had opened it ourselves manually. So it's sort of a quick way to do it. You'll also notice there is a hotkey for that. Shift, in this case Command Q, it's probably Shift Control Q on your computer. So if I do Shift Command Q, oh, no, that's not right. Let's try Shift Control Q. Ah, that's not right. Why is it doing that? Open in browser. It certainly is Shift Command Q. Let's take a look here real quick. I'm going to go under Atom Preferences. We can see how to solve this problem. Obviously that particular key combination is not working. Let's go into Packages, and let's look for Open in Browser. Just type a little bit. And let's see what this tells me. A very simple Open in Browser atom.io package. Files will open in your default browser or application. Does it allow me to define any keys at all? There we go. So if I click not on the title but on the main box itself, here's where it is, Shift Command Q. And obviously that does not work. Can I change this binding? It'd be nice if we could. I know I can override this somewhere if you want to bind your own keystrokes. So the command is open in browser : open. So let's see if we can make our own. So I'm going to unenable the key binding, and I want to go define my own. I know I can do this over here. If I go under Atom Key Map, which is probably File Key Map on Windows, I'm allowed to define my own bindings. So here, Atom Text Editor, the command, and then the actual thing I want it to do. So let's do that. Atom Text Editor. The command or the keystroke that I want here, let's do Ctrl-Shift-Q, Control-Shift-Q, and then I'm going to paste in that thing I copied. I want it to run, and this needs to be in quotes, open in browser, open. So there I've defined my own custom key mapping for that. You might not have to do that. In fact, on Windows, hopefully this isn't an issue, but I need to get it not Command-Shift-Q. That one clearly doesn't work. So now let's come back to this. Let's try Control-Shift-Q. That's better. So we ran into a problem, but we solved it. This is something that didn't used to be an issue on the previous version of OS X. Let's talk about what we created here, this unordered list. So the unordered list begins with a UL tag, closes with a UL tag, and then it has some number of list item tags as its children. So UL is the parent, LI are the children. Keep in mind when you do this, UL is not allowed to have any other children. You may be tempted here. Maybe I want to say something like days of the week. It's not going to like that. It's going to say text not allowed in element UL in this context. Now, that doesn't mean the browser can't handle it. If we save it and go over here, the browser kind of still shows it in a reasonable way, not the right way, but it does show it. You think, oh, well, it just needs to be a header. Let's make it like H3 or something, right? And then it'll be happy. So we can do that. It's still not going to like that. H3 not allowed is child of UL. If we save this, now again, it will probably render it okay. It does seem to do right, but you have broken the rules of HTML here. You shouldn't be doing this. Pay attention to this error because this is something I would count off for. This really belongs before the list if you want it as a heading. So we would put it there, not as a child, and then it says days of the week, and then you have the list of the days of the week, minus Sunday for some reason. Oh, and Thursday has 2 S's. Day. Let's get Sunday in there, because that's going to bug me. Gotta have Sunday. I shortened your weekend by 1 day. I'm so sorry. So, whenever you have an unordered list, you can only have LI children. Do not attempt to put any other children. Now, if you do want to do some other formatting in here, you can still do that. Let's say we want to do Monday dash the worst. And Friday, OMG. And we want these to be formatted a little differently. Well, we could come in here and put a B tag around Monday. You should have read about B tags as a way to make something bold. It's frowned upon because normally we should be doing that inside of CSS, but you can still do it. And this should call out those as bold. Notice the bold tag is not a child of UL, it's a child of LI, and that's a big difference. I don't get any errors, and when I go to render this, it bolds them just fine. That's just an example of how we can do this. Here's another one. We could put I tag on Saturday and Sunday so that they're called out a little different. It's a little bit tricky here. There we go. And then the weekend is illustrated in italics. B and I are for bold and italic, if you didn't know. Should have read about those, though. We'll be doing that differently when we have the ability to apply styles with CSS. So B and I tags are kind of frowned upon. You really shouldn't use those, but they're a nice little way to show an example here. Note here, if I go off of UL, the only children I see for it are LIs. We can also illustrate that over here. Remember in the browser here, if I right-click and say Inspect Element, that brings up the developer tools. And here under Elements, I can take a look at UL. And I can see here are its children, LI, LI, LI. They're all LIs, and that's how it should be. So that's the key thing. Keep that in mind. There's another kind of list. We have an unordered list. You can probably guess. The other one is an ordered list, OL. And what's that going to do? Well, first it's going to yell at me. Why? Because I'm opening with OL, but I'm closing with UL. You always have to match your opening and closing tags. So I need to change that one to OL too. But what's it going to do different? Well, you remember, or you might have noticed, when we do an unordered list, it just puts bullets in front of them. Here, it's going to put numbers, which is good. It gives me a little more, if I wanted to have my things numbered for some reason, in this case, they are numbered for the actual day of the week they are. 1 is Monday, 7 is Sunday. I can do that. You have a lot of ways to control all of this stuff as well. Let's take a look at how I might control some things about an ordered list, because that's something where we might like to change things around a little bit. In order to see this, I'm going to come back over. This is the big W3 Schools reference about different tags. And I'm going to go over to the OL tag. So again, if you haven't been to this before, w3schools.com, and then click HTML. And then on this left side here, scroll down until you get to HTML reference and just hit HTML tag list. That is the motherlode of documentation for all of this. It's a really good one to have as a shortcut up in your browser bar or something like that. Let's go ahead and get down to OL. There it is. The reason I want to bring this up here is because I want to take a look at some of the tag attributes. We haven't used any tag attributes yet, at least not knowingly. And now I'd like to talk about them because every single tag can have attributes applied to it. When we think about a tag's layout, there are really several different things involved. There's its own particular type, which is the name of the tag in essence. So this surrounding one here, the type is HTML. There's its content, which is everything that occurs between the open and closed tag, and which is very often made up of other tags. Any other tags that appear immediately below that tag are considered its children. HTML always has head and body as its children. The last thing that you can have goes inside the open tag, and it's where we have these key equals value pairings. We have a couple of them. We have lang equals en, that sets the language to English. And we have char set equals UTF-8. That sets the character encoding to be UTF-8 encoding. These are tag attributes, sometimes called properties, really. It's just 6 of one, no half dozen the other. Attributes can be very useful for customizing a tag when the tag type has more than one option. They provide a little more information about what you're trying to do. The ordered list, by default, is going to render things as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. It will start at 1, and it will number them with a single number and a period. You might not necessarily want to do it that way. You can imagine an ordered list could have many different ways that you run it. So we can come over here and look at the OL tag, and let's see if it has some attributes that might allow us to change this. Just looking at the example up here at the top, we can see start is an attribute, and we can probably guess what that means. Let's come back here and let's say start equals 0. Always put the value half of it in double quotes like this. You can also put it in single quotes, but we're going to want to put it in double quotes. You say whatever the particular thing is you're trying to customize, in this case start equals, and then the value in quotes. If we put that to 0, what happens to our page? Not surprisingly, it starts at 0. So this allows you to control what the first number is. What's the default value for that? It's 1, not surprisingly. Let's scroll on down here. You'll find on these pages that eventually, if it does have some important attributes, you will see them called out. So what are the ones that we have here? We have start, reversed, and type. You'll see some of these are marked as not supported in HTML5. If it says that, never use it. Seriously, never use it. So just keep that in mind. Let's try reversed. What can we do with reversed? Reversed is one of these tags that is just true or false. And there's a word for that. That means it's Boolean. You probably have encountered that before in your experiences with programming. Bool or Boolean. If it's one of those, all you have to do is list it. You don't have to say equals something. If you list it, that means it's true, you want it on. If you don't list it, it's false. Naturally, for something like reverse, the default is false. Let's come over here now, and that we've listed it, and look at that. It's counting down now instead of counting up. Now, because I listed the start as being 0, it still starts at 0, but it counts down. Let's see if we take start out, if it's going to start at 1. I'm guessing it would, but who knows? The behavior might be different. No, it starts at 7 and counts down. So it counted how many there were and then reversed it. That's clever. But if you list the starting value, it's not going to do that. It's going to start exactly where you told it to start and count down. So you can see how these can affect each other. The last one that was listed here, which is handy, is type. And you can guess, this allows you to sort of customize it. The ones that are built in are 1, which means numbers, that's the default, capital letters, lowercase letters, capital Roman numerals, that's what the I is, and lowercase Roman numerals. So let's change the type to be equal to little I, lowercase Roman numerals. And let's see what we get for that. It's still reversed, so it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Notice that the period stays lined up too, so it's very clever about how it lists these things, which is a good thing. We could also make it capital Roman numerals if we wanted. Refresh again, there they are. So we have a little bit of flexibility. Notice the only ones that are guaranteed to be available are I, and number. So this is numbers, 2 different kinds of Roman numerals, and 2 different kinds of letters. Those are the only ones that are defined, so don't try and use any others. Even if you might find some other ones work, those would be browser specific. Those are not part of the HTML standard. So those are the 2 main kinds of lists. The only other thing you really need to know is that if you want to, you can nest lists. So let's say, first of all, let's change this back to how it was before, just the default type of ordered list. Let's say for one of these, we want to actually break down our time for the day. So let's say on Wednesday, I want to be a little more specific about what I'm going to do on that day. And so I'd like another, let's say, unordered list. This belongs still inside the list item, because remember, you can never have anything other than an li as a child of some sort of ordered list or unordered list. So I'm still inside the li, part of the before the close li, but after the word Wednesday. And here I'm going to make a new unordered list. And I'm going to give it its own items. And let's say, here, I'm going to get this all on one line. Let's say 9 a.m. Wake up. Yeah, I wish. I'm up way earlier than that. Let's go noon. Lunchies. And then probably about 6 o'clock. Miller time. And so we put in a few little headings right there. I might like to bold these just like I did before. But notice here now I have a UL that's inside of the OL. Let's see how it renders that. Boop. There we go. On Wednesday, remember we changed it back to numbers, so don't be shocked by that. On Wednesday now, I have this other list of times and things that I do on Wednesday. So that calls that out in a more custom way. While we're here, let's go ahead and take a look real quick at things we can do with the UL as well, what attributes it might support. This is a bulleted list. You'll notice here there is one that you can still use even though it's marked not supported in HTML5. Most browsers will still let you do this. I'm not encouraging you using it other than in this assignment to just sort of play with it. Once you get into your own professional practice, if it is marked not supported in HTML5, don't use it. But let's play with it right now just for fun. Let's change this to type equals square. Now, notice down here it says the type attribute on the UL element is obsolete. Use CSS instead. Well, yeah, we'll do that eventually once we've learned CSS, but we haven't yet, and so let's not go there. I come back over here and refresh this. They switch to squares. Most browsers will still respect it when you put it in there because browsers want your page to work, even if it's old. So don't worry about testing things like this, but don't leave it in there in the end when you actually go to make something a little more sophisticated. All right. With that all said and done, we've played around with lists here. There's one other kind of list I'm not going to go into that is very rarely used called a definition list, or DL. You can read all about that on the W3 schools, or there's some descriptions of it in the book as well. It's a less common type of list that's used because most people want to do that sort of thing on their own. But it is there, and make sure you at least know it exists.